Danika, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here today and excited to jump into this topic of parenthood and work life and balancing it all.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Oh man, the balance of it all is just it's a constant I feel like I don't know. I'm picturing like the I don't go to the gym very often, so I have no idea what this is called. But it's like a half of a ball with like a plate or something on
It's a
top,
Bosu
and you
ball.
like try to balance, and it's always it's you okay. Well, what a rosu?
Bosu.
Is always Bosu. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm like picturing a Bosu ball of like that balance of like you have like your forward and backward balance
hmm
is good, but then
hmm
something happens. Like we were chatting before this about how my 5-year-old is homesick from school because kindergarten. It's the second week of school. There's sicknesses being passed around, and she's home right now, so that's another balance of like, okay, I've got to find exactly the footing and everything for this Bosu ball. I'm gonna have to
Right.
remember Bosu. But yeah, no, that's like what I picture with parenting and business and just how it's constantly changing.
I love that you brought up that as an example because I actually grew up an athlete. When I was in high school, I had a bad knee injury. I needed surgery. So I went through a lot of physical therapy after, and I trained on the Bosu
Hmm.
ball a lot. So I love that.
Okay.
It's very, yeah, it's like very familiar to me. So maybe that's why I really enjoy this topic because I try to find, those things that I can do to really try to balance my time spent with my son. I have one
Hmm.
one little boy right now. He's 3 years old, and then obviously then like our family time, like once my husband's home from his job, and then of course
Yeah.
work life, which takes up a lot of time as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. I wonder if it's because you said you were an athlete. I was not much of an athlete, but I did like skateboarding because that was like super big in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I loved skateboarding and like trying to balance and all of that. And
hmm
anytime that I saw a Bosu ball anywhere, like if we were at a hotel and they had a little in-house gym, there was always one of those in the corner, and I would just go over there and like try and balance and pretend to do a kickflip or something.
I've
But
never thought
yeah,
about it in
no,
that
I like,
realm.
yeah,
But I can see how that totally
yeah,
makes sense for a skateboarder.
yeah, yeah. I'll have to have a professional skateboarder, maybe. Yeah, Tony Hawk, come on the show, and we'll chat about that. I'll see if he
Like,
practices
just bring him in
and
right now.
trains
Bring
on
him in
those
right now.
things. Yeah. Oh, Tony, you're in the chat. Come on in. Uh,
Wouldn't that be epic?
but yeah,
I would freak out. I'd lose my mind.
yeah, yeah. It was like, and this is our surprise guest.
hmm I was like, wow,
But
nice
yeah, well,
surprise. I didn't
okay,
expect
so
that.
right, yeah. But I told you earlier before we started
Mhm.
recording that I wanted to try something new.
Yes.
That I had planned. Kind of, this is going into a newer season. I kind of took a little bit of a not a hiatus, but just like a slower pace for the summer.
hmm
Um, as we were talking earlier, I had all three kids at home with
hmm
me, and um, it's a lot to manage three kids
Absolutely.
and a photography business and a podcast. So I was like, all
hmm
right, something's got to rein back a little bit. So I pulled the podcast back from weekly shows to every other week, and
hmm
this is whenever this episode goes live, we will be back to weekly episodes. So I wanted to try something new, add something new to the show
Okay.
for this new season. Don't worry, this is
I
not
was like, you're making me nervous.
it's not anything too crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you do you are you familiar with Stephen Colbert
Yes.
from like the Late Show and
hmm
Colbert Report and all of that?
hmm
So he has something on the Late Show that he calls the Colbert Questionnaire,
Okay.
and it's just like 15 questions that he asks celebrities to like really get to know them.
Okay.
And I thought that would be fun to take a couple questions from his questionnaire and just ask you to get to know you, because we can go through the whole bio of like where you're based and what you
Right.
do and all of that, but really to get to know Danica.
Oh man.
Um,
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
so there's there's 15 questions. I
Okay.
have them numbered. So I'm going to have you choose two different numbers and then I will ask you those at random.
All right.
So
Four,
anything between 1 and 15. Okay.
4 and 11.
4, 4 and 11. Okay.
I'm
These
a
are
huge
either
numbers
or
girl,
questions.
so
Okay. Sweet. 4 is one of my favorite numbers in the world. Like 4, 7, it's anything with those. I
you're
used to
speaking
draw
my
those all the
language
time.
already with those numbers.
Yeah. Okay, so 4, the question is apples or oranges?
Oranges.
Oranges. Okay, good. Any? Do you have something against apples, or you just really like oranges?
I think that I like. Oh no, I don't have something against apples. If I eat apples, they're
Okay.
green apples. And I
Okay.
guess when I eat oranges, I actually prefer like the little cutie oranges, the small ones. And they
Yeah.
are something that I craved when I was pregnant with my son. So I think it's more of like a special sentiment. And plus, I love
Yeah.
orange juice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Orange juice is it's amazing. So much better than apple juice, in my opinion.
Yes.
But yeah, there was oh, where was I? I was at a conference in Florida
Mhm.
um, last year, and they had a juicer, an orange juicer that like you could see the oranges going in, and then it juiced them and everything. And every
Probably the
morning I would
best
just go there.
juice.
It was so good. Yeah, because it was Florida
The
too, so
fresh
it's like
squeezed orange
oranges
juice in
from down the
Florida.
street.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Hmm. So yeah,
You cannot
okay,
go wrong with that.
awesome. Oranges. I those cuties. We go through those by the 5 pound bushel
Hmm.
here in the house. It's just everyone loves those, and I am anytime that I get peel one for the kids, I'm like I'm gonna peel one for myself too
It's all
because these are
right.
delicious.
It's funny
Okay,
because my
so that was
son
number
isn't.
4.
I was going to say it's funny because my
Yeah.
son isn't super interested in them, even though I craved them when I was pregnant with him. So I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
he'll eat an apple.
that is That is funny. So he's on the Apple side.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so the other number 11 is another this or that kind of question.
Okay.
Sparkling or flat?
I'm like, what are we talking about? Water?
I'm assuming water, yeah, or whatever you're interpreting that question to be.
I don't know. I'm like, probably flat then. If we're talking
Okay.
water, just normal water. I've never been a big fan of sparkling water for some reason. Don't know why.
I also wasn't. My mom always liked like Perrier
Hmm.
growing up, and I remember trying that and not being a big fan. But I love Topo Chico,
Okay.
which
I
is
haven't tried
very
it.
similar, just like sparkling mineral water. It's really big here in like the Austin, Texas area, and it's kind
Hmm.
of expanded a bit. But yeah,
Maybe I need
I
to
love Topo
revisit
Chico.
that and give it a shot.
Yeah, yeah. It's like what is it? Like our taste buds change like every 7 years or
7 years.
so. We have like
Hmm.
a whole new set,
Hmm.
and there have been so many foods and different things that I was like, I hated these before, but now like Brussels sprouts.
Oh,
I
yep.
love Brussels sprouts. We make them all
Hmm.
the time, and I used to hate those things,
Yep. I was
but
like
yeah,
the
definitely
classic.
try some. Oh yeah, me
I
too.
was gonna say I was like the classic
No,
picky eater growing up, but I've expanded my horizons a little
same.
bit.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, our oldest, he is 8, and he is just like I was, just very
Hmm.
picky. And like
Hmm.
so many times I get frustrated, but then I'm just like, yeah, that was me though. Like I didn't want to eat anything green, and I didn't even like beans because I was just like, I was just the texture, and
Yep.
I was a big texture person,
Yeah,
and so was
I
he.
can relate to
So
that as well.
very, very relatable with him. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely try if you want to try some sparkling water. Topo Chico is definitely the way to go.
If I give it a shot, I'll let you
But
know
yeah.
how I like
Okay.
it.
Well, cool. Well, thanks. Thanks. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Thanks for answering those questions.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna keep that in. That was fun.
I like
But yeah,
that.
thanks for being my guinea pig.
Of
On
course.
trying that out.
Well, I
Um,
have something I want to
but
ask
yeah.
you.
So. Ooh. Okay.
Can
Cool. I don't
to
get
to
asked
make this
questions very
extra
often, so this is
fun.
fun.
So you have 1 through 15.
Oh,
Can I
okay.
pick one more number, but then you answer the question?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me pull that back up. Yes. Okay. What other number?
Let's do
There's a couple like deep questions too. It's a lot of like that kind of stuff, but then there's a
okay.
couple deep questions. So I'm like, I don't know if you're
Let's
gonna
do
pick a
number
good one.
1.
Um, okay, number one. Number one is what is the best sandwich?
Hmm.
Um, it's funny. I was actually thinking about this the other day because I'm not a big sandwich person, but
What?
I was craving like a chicken pesto, like flatbread panini type, like with the press and the grill marks and all of
Yeah.
that, and
Yes.
just like with
The melty
some
cheese.
grilled chicken and yeah, melty cheese,
Mhm.
pesto, some sun-dried tomatoes in there,
Ooh.
maybe some arugula, and
Yeah.
yeah, some sort of nice dipping sauce to go along with it.
That
But
sounds
yeah,
really
yeah,
delicious, actually.
I would say that is my best sandwich.
I
So
like it.
cool. Well, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad I
I'm
got to
glad I
ask
got
you
to
a
answer
question
one
that gets
too.
to know you too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So now that we know you, Danica, where are you based, and what do you do?
So I am based in Northern California, just outside of the Bay Area, and I am a wedding and family photographer. I own Sharpshooter Photography. And then as of January this year, I just decided to jump in and start my own podcast as well. So that's called the Sharpshooter Pod. And it's
Yeah.
something that, I mean, you obviously know here I'm a talker, that's why I'm here. So it just felt like it would come easy to me. And then as I mentioned to you before we started going live today, my two older brothers, they did a podcast. Theirs was actually called the Sharpshooter Cast back in the day, so my whole company is actually a
Oh, cool.
spin-off um, from their company. But
Nice.
yeah, so I'm using my podcast as a space to educate beginner photographers, side hustlers, and inspire moms who are wanting to run their photo business full time.
Yeah, I love that. That is so
Thank
good,
you.
and I love like the style of your podcast too, because it just feels like you're just like talking to me, and not like I don't know. Sometimes a lot of these podcasts are very like overproduced
Hmm.
and very like here are all the bullet points and
Right,
go to this and download this free thing and all of that. I'm like, I just want to like feel like I'm talking to someone,
right.
especially this day and age where we're so isolated as
Hmm.
entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
Where a lot of us, like I'm recording this in my bedroom right now. Like this is where I work. This is my
Yeah,
one of the desks in the house,
yeah.
and a lot of times we are separated, so like that's what I want
Hmm.
to feel, is like that I'm just chatting with someone, and I feel that listening to your podcast.
Thank you. I really
So
appreciate
yeah,
you saying
you're
so.
I like it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually took kind of a
Yeah.
unique approach with mine. Um, since I'm like gearing it more towards moms who are trying to run their business with their babies like on their side, obviously everything we're talking about today. Um, I in my very first episode, I said, you know what? This is actually going to be completely unedited. I'm a mom. I have a busy schedule. I don't have time to edit this. Like it is what it is, and like take it or leave it. Like there will be value, but it's not going to be edited, and so it allows me
Right.
that opportunity to like share my experiences just like in a really authentic way and just speak completely from the heart. And there are times like it depends like on the topic, like I'll have like my notes and stuff like that, but other times like I just go on and I just share like what I'm going through and like experiences like within my business or life. um I think that makes it the most relatable.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love the unedited feel,
Hmm.
where it's not like, oh, I could tell that part of that conversation or part of
That's like tough.
whatever you were talking about was edited out.
Right.
Like where you can tell like where they're talking like this, and then it's like, and then
Yeah.
how about over here? And it was like a totally different cadence. And like, oh, you edited out something. I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, no, I think that's great. And we talked a little bit earlier about like kids coming in
Hmm.
during podcast recording, and like even client calls where
Yes.
they'll come in and I'm like, hey, so meet my daughter, she's here,
Yeah.
she's just gonna sit in my lap. And I used to be worried about that, like, oh, this is not professional, and what are they going
Mhm.
to think about that? And it is always endearing. They're just like,
Mhm.
oh, that's so great, even if they don't have kids.
Right.
They're just like, oh, like, yeah, you online you present as a family man, like
Right.
you do this to be at home with your family, and now we get to see you're meeting with us over Zoom, but then my 3-year-old comes in and asking for some juice or
Yep.
whatever, or just wants to come wave at the people on the screen.
I was like, now the real
And
question
yeah,
is she asking for apple or orange juice?
yeah, well, she's allergic to apple juice,
Oh
so
no.
it is
So orange
definitely orange
juice
juice.
is.
Yeah, she is less allergic now, but whenever she was a baby, like, we couldn't even give her like the little juice or the
Oh, poor thing.
I don't know, like those pouches of
Right.
baby puree type stuff. We couldn't do anything that had apple in it, so it was
Mm,
like we had two flavors, and that was it. Because apple is like the base of everything.
right.
Um, but yeah, she's better now, but she loves some orange juice. Um, so much so we go through gallons of that stuff.
Team
Um,
orange.
but yes, yeah, Team Orange. We're all Team Orange here. But yeah, okay. Well, that's great. I wanted to ask you about, like, maybe some misconceptions about running a business with a baby by your side. Like,
Mhm.
what are some things that you might hear regularly that that aren't true?
I think the two biggest things, the first thing is like it's not possible to be successful like
Mm-hmm.
with a baby by your side. But I think that has to do a lot with like the second thing that I'm going to say, which is I don't have time. And I don't think that's necessarily I don't think it's 100% true. I think that you just have to be really good at managing your time and making like a schedule that works for you.
Mm-hmm. How do you have some tips on that? Because I know for me,
Yes.
there have definitely been seasons where I'm like, I just don't have time. Like, the time that I have to work on my business is like midnight, because I
Yeah.
don't want to be the parent that's like sitting on my laptop, like at the table, and just like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, no, go color or whatever,
Mhm.
and not being present with the kids.
Right.
But I also don't want to be the parent that's up at 2 a.m. editing photos. So yeah, do you
Yeah.
have some tips on how we can manage well?
Well, I think there's definitely different seasons of this. And it for in my experience, I actually ran a master class. It was a free master class I ran earlier this year called Running Your Business with a Baby. And one of the actually two of the things I talked about were oh my gosh, sleep training and also wake windows for naps. And those are like obviously like
Mm.
in the infant days, so if someone's
Hmm.
out there, they're a new mom, those are two things that I would definitely like look into. We started sleep training my son at 6 months, but once I learned about the wake windows and kind of like how many times per day he should be napping and like how many hours he should be awake between those naps, that was a game changer because our schedule became a little bit more predictable at that point. And then I would always allot those nap times to work time. So that would be like my biggest thing if you're
Hmm.
trying to avoid like the midnight hour of editing. But
Right.
before I learned about those things, probably I would say within the first 4 to 6 months of his life, if there was time that I was working, I think I started working when he was about 2 months old. But if there was time that I was working, I would stay up till midnight or I would be up early, and it really just kind of, I think, depends like what we're going through because life always throws those curveballs. And the really ironic
Hmm.
thing, actually, for my master class, which I hosted back in April, uh, whoever attended, I was going to be sending them like a template for like my weekly schedule, which I can actually give you that link if you'd like as well to add. But
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think that it's a great template. Like I literally broke down like what my whole week looked like, when I would work, when I would, hang out with my son, when he would nap, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, I was sitting there in Canva and I was like creating this and I was like, this is going to be so great to give to everybody. And I was like, I really thought, I was like, wow, I have this like dialed in. Look at me. Like I got this week laid out. We're good. My son, I kid you
Oh yeah.
not, like an hour after I finished that, he broke his leg on a trampoline
Oh
and it
no. Yeah.
demolished like the whole everything. Like everything was just completely, because we can't go to the parks. Like he had a full leg cast, So that's just like an example of like one of those things. It's like life throws curveballs and then you have to rebuild and reset.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I feel like with kids, especially the like 5, maybe 7 and below,
Hmm.
it's just constant curveballs all the
It's,
time.
it's
Just
chaos.
curveballs and knuckleballs and
Yeah.
whatever other. I'm not a big baseball person, but yeah, anything but a straight down the middle
Right.
fastball.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's so great. Like even with that, I'm sure that having that structure and that schedule is like, okay, now I already have this in place. So now that we have this curveball of a broken leg, and there's going to be um, a lot more one-on-one help doing
Right.
stuff. Um, you had that structure to where you're like, okay, this section is good.
Hmm.
We can stick with that, and then this we can like move around and kind of figure out what needs to happen. So having that
Yeah.
structure is just
And that's like
like building
when
blocks that you can build on whenever.
Yeah, and that's like a
Yeah.
time for me, like when things had to shift till like later in the evening because my husband works, he commutes pretty
Mm,
far, but he's like up, when at the crack of dawn and then not home till later in the evening. Um, and so it's like not until he gets home, then by that time, like it's like, okay, we're doing dinner and all of that. So it's like during the season of my son's broken leg, I was staying up later doing stuff because like my normal schedule just wasn't the same.
oh yeah.
So, but I think that one cool thing, I actually interviewed someone on my podcast earlier this year. Her name's Marissa. She runs a company here in the Bay Area called Mama Work It. And
Okay.
she gave me like an interesting tidbit, like because so many moms who are entrepreneurs, they say like I don't have time to do XYZ. But she said, "Well, let's rephrase that and say it's not a priority right now." She goes, because then it's going to raise awareness on
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it actually should be a priority and like, "Oh wait, I actually need to make time for that because it has to get done." Or you're like, okay, wait, I'm okay with that not being a priority today. Maybe it'll be a priority tomorrow or next week. So you can like be a little bit more clear and honest with yourself about what actually needs to get done instead of trying to do everything and then feeling too overwhelmed to do anything.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's definitely speaking to me because I get that where I don't know like that. Um, Everything is happening or you see something and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go, I need to go fold the laundry because it's been sitting over there for 3 days
Hmm.
and I need to do this or it's not gonna happen. And
Hmm.
then you go over there, but then while you're over there you see something else, the
The
table's not
toy is
cleared
out
off.
of
It's like,
place.
oh well,
Yeah.
yeah, the toy's out of place, and it's just like a constant train of just stuff that needs to happen. And
Right.
having that frame set, that mindset of like, okay, what is priority right now?
Hmm.
Those other things, they can wait. Or sometimes like I have client emails that I need to get back to now. That is
Right.
priority. Like
Right.
the laundry hoot that has been sitting there for 3 days, and I'm like looking at it
Yeah.
right
I
now.
kind of have my bucket
I
too.
can look over and side eye, but like that laundry, is that the priority? Does that need to be folded this minute, or can we put that off to 15 minutes from now once you
Hmm.
finish all of the emails that you need to send that are a priority?
Right.
um, then you can do that.
Yeah.
And my wife is diagnosed uh, non or what is the I can't even think of the name, neurodivergent,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I am Probably, well, definitely undiagnosed, but I feel like a lot of the like the stuff that you see on TikTok where they're like, okay, here's some ADHD hacks. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, that would help me a lot. And I'm like, I wonder if I am ADHD or at least some sort of neurotypical something.
I actually learned
But
something about myself earlier this year, a couple months ago.
oh
Um,
yeah,
have you heard
okay,
of HSP for highly sensitive person?
HSP.
Yeah. This might be something to
No,
look
but that's
into.
probably me.
Because
Yeah,
well, it was interesting because before we started recording and, what you were sharing with me about you and your wife doing your podcasting, I thought it crossed my mind because I
yeah.
was like, "Wow, that's, like, so special and so sentimental." But it was brought to my attention that there's this something called HSP for highly sensitive person, and it goes outside of just, like, being sensitive, like, emotionally. It could be, like, sensitive to sound, sensitive to, like, different textures, et cetera, et cetera. So I learned that
Mm,
I'm HSP, but I'm still learning about it just because I discovered this like 2 months ago. But
right.
one of the things is it's similar to ADHD, and it can be dubbed like neurodivergent as well. So
Mm,
yeah,
mhm.
it's just really interesting that you bring that kind of stuff up because definitely relatable.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into
Mhm,
HSP now because that sounds like me. I know, like as a kid, I was very sensitive to textures. I
mhm.
am very temperature sensitive.
Oh, okay.
I if it is not like 69 degrees, I am sweating. And living in Texas right now, it is not the
Oh,
best because
right.
it's been like 105 for
Oh,
months now.
oh yeah,
uh,
it's
and
brutal.
our poor AC is just like
Struggling.
just like just like coughing outside. Like I'm trying so hard to keep it cool for you guys. Um, but like we have a slight cool front right now, so it's like
Mhm.
upper 90s, and it's
Uh-huh.
great. Which is sad,
A
but
little bit of
it's
relief.
great.
No, I get
A
that, I get
little
that.
bit of relief. But yeah, no, I'm gonna have to look into that because
Mhm.
I like like I mentioned earlier, I was also very sensitive to or a very picky eater
Yeah, I was that's what
as
I
a
was
kid,
thinking too when you were saying that.
and yeah, and I can see that being part of that. I also have a
Mhm,
auditory issue where like if there's loud noises around, like a bunch of
mhm,
ambient sound,
mhm.
I can't focus on one
Mhm.
thing. Having
Right.
conversations in restaurants is terrible, where I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
Y
I wish I could read lips, and I probably need to train on doing that.
Yeah.
But like, I just hear the music, and I'm like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
cool beat, or like out of the kitchen, and it's just it's not great.
Yeah, no, I
um,
relate to that totally 'cause, I thought that I was, like, crazy forever until I just found this out.
mm,
It's been kind of like a roadmap to my own brain, which is really interesting. But, like, for instance,
hmm
like, one of the sounds that just drives me nuts is, like, the sound of, like, a bathroom fan. Like, it just is, like
Ooh,
makes
just like
everything
that
else.
hum.
Yes. I can't deal with it,
Mm,
and then it's like, then whatever else is going on in the house, at the bathtub's running, the TV's on, all of that, I'm just like, "Okay, too much."
right.
So,
Just
yeah.
it's that overstimulation
Mhm.
of audio is just
Mhm.
it's too much. Yeah, like whenever all the kids get home from school and everything, they're just like running circles around the
Yeah,
couch in the living room and yelling, and they're having the best
of
time, and
course.
we're just like, we don't want to stop this because this is
Right,
great, and they're not like begging to watch YouTube or something.
right.
But it's also like y'all are so loud right now. I can't even. I walked into the kitchen. I don't remember why I'm here, and just because my audio sensitivity is just like my brain shuts down. I'm like, I don't know. I
Mhm,
have no idea what I was gonna do. I'm
mhm.
just gonna sit down.
Yeah. I think that's
But
another thing
yeah,
that can be
I'm gonna look into that.
it can be challenging too, like those types of
Mm,
things, the overstimulation and just the overwhelm in general,
mm,
and that's actually
mm,
something like I've talked about a lot on my podcast. Is just that sense of overwhelm and some things to do to like kind of check yourself and kind of get yourself back to a better headspace. Um, One thing that I actually had on that list that I kind of keep going back to, which I felt was like really random when I brought it up, was just the word water. And like for me, like I have found that like if I like drink water, if I we live, out here close to the ocean, like if I were to visit the ocean, if I were to go swimming, take a shower, take a
Yeah.
bath, anything that kind of like has to do with water just seems to like help me personally with overwhelm. There's a slew of other
Oh,
things, but that was one of the ones that I actually found most interesting.
yeah. I find that interesting too. I am
Mhm.
definitely a water person.
Mhm.
I just there's something we are actually going to the bay this coming weekend,
Oh, wow.
and there's something about just being there and hearing the waves
Mhm.
and just the water crashing and or even yeah, I grew up near near a river that a lot of people, my parents, as they were like, my mom was 9 months pregnant with me, just tubing down the river,
Oh my god.
floating down,
Good for her.
and oh yeah, yeah, they loved it.
I
They
love that.
they called us river rats, just living out there, floating the river all the time. But like that, even just the sound of like a brook or a
Mhm.
stream or
Mhm.
something, or just maybe not the smell of a pool, but
Yeah,
just being around a big body of water,
right.
um, it kind of like centers you.
Mhm.
It's just a feeling of like you just feel that peace in
Yeah,
that.
that's that sense of calm for
I don't
sure.
know. It's hard to explain.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, definitely brings a lot of calmness, just being around water.
And I don't know
So
if
I'm
it's
looking
that
forward to that
way.
this weekend.
Yeah, that'll be great. I was gonna say, I don't know if it's that way for everybody, or maybe it's just similar for me and you because we grew up near big bodies of water, and I
Could
don't know,
be.
but it's definitely something
Yeah,
to look
could
into.
be. Yeah, if you're listening and you're like, "Oh, that is me,"
Yeah,
let us know.
yeah.
Hit us up on Instagram or whatever, because
Mhm.
I'm always interested in because there's so many things that I thought was just me growing up, or just like, oh, I didn't like the audio deal with um, not being able to focus on one sound, but just like being overwhelmed by everything, and then talking about that and like meeting my wife who has the same issue, and talking about that in like my Instagram stories before, and other people are like, oh yeah, me 100%. I'm like, oh, this is not just me. Like I always felt like something was wrong, or not
Right.
necessarily wrong, but just like not exactly right.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, oh no, this is actually pretty normal. A lot of
Mhm.
people deal with this. A lot of people feel this way. Um, so I love social media and I hate social media at the same
Yes.
time for different reasons.
Mhm.
But what I love about social media is that it brings people together, and like you and I met on social media on
Right.
Instagram, and it's like I wouldn't have met you. I don't go to the Bay Area
Mhm.
all that often,
Mhm.
like maybe twice in the last 35 years.
Oh
So
my
yeah, not very often.
You're due for a trip.
uh, I am due for a trip, and yeah, it's let's see, y'all are the Atlantic, correct? Out
No, we're
there?
the Pacific.
No, Pacific. That's right. Yeah. Um,
When you come
but
out
yeah,
here
the
next, I'll
Pacific is my favorite.
I would say when you come out here next, I'll
It's
take you and your wife for cortados.
ooh yeah.
I
Oh, I love
know.
a good
I know you
cortado.
do. I remember we talked about that.
We have talked about that.
Mhm.
Which, if you're listening and you don't know what a cortado is, just ask at whatever coffee shop you're going into. Probably not Starbucks, because a lot of times that I ask for one there, they're just like, "It's not on the menu. I don't know what this is." But it's really good. Equal parts espresso and textured milk. Very very tasty.
I still haven't
Um,
tried it because I actually didn't know what it was until you told me. So I should actually probably
yeah,
give one a try. I have a lot
go
of things to try. Got to go
go
try new
go give it
drinks
a try.
apparently.
Right, yeah. That is me. I have all of the drinks. But yeah, especially if it's coffee related.
Mhm.
Um, but no, that's very interesting about all of that. So like with that, I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but when because I'm just picturing like myself at different times, and
Mhm.
also other parents that I've talked
Mhm.
to, where it's so hard to be present
Mhm.
as a parent, and also be present in your business. Um, we just went through the summer, which is just like full on parent mode where
Mhm.
everyone is home all the time. If especially if you don't have like daycare or anything like that for little ones.
Right.
Um, do you have any tips for like how to be more present, but also like getting things done to where it's not like I either have to wake up at 4 a.m. and do this before everyone wakes up, or staying up till midnight. Which for me, anytime that I have been like, oh, I'm gonna wake up at 5 o'clock and get an hour and a half done before anyone else in the house wakes up. I wake up at 5, and at 5:15, one of the kids is just like, "I'm up. Okay, cool. Let's start the day." I'm like, "Not today. Like I was supposed to work today, and now I'm just gonna be tired all day."
Oh man.
It's
Yeah.
like every single time that I've done that.
I will say it's kind of funny because before my son was born, my husband and I, we both love a good like sleep in day, you know? And so we're like, oh, we hope we have a sleepy
Mm-hmm.
baby. And we were blessed with a little sleepy boy. So we're very,
Nice,
very fortunate
nice.
in that regard because it helps big time, obviously. And so I have to try to like
Mm-hmm.
stay conscious that like that's not the case for every single parent. Like most kids, it sounds like are early risers where my son will like want to sleep till like 9 if I let him. Um,
Yeah.
a few things came to mind as you were just saying that about like how to be present with work and kids. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, one of the things about like taking on entrepreneurship immediately, it was like I want to do this because I want to be able to spend time with my son. And this was before he was born. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I was pregnant at the time. Just so you kind of know the timeline for me, I decided to go full time in January 2020, right before the
Nice.
pandemic.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, it was a little hectic, and then my son was born in June, so that was a very hectic time, but a very
Yeah.
oddly,
Cheers
odd
to
like
pandemic babies. We
yes,
have an
they're
October 2020 baby. They're
oh
something
yeah,
else.
they really are. Oh my gosh, but like yeah, I'm like so impressed by my son all the time. I'm like, holy moly. But
Yeah.
so oh, I lost my train of thought on that. The timing.
Timeline.
Oh, and I
You
was saying so
you
like
wanted to be at home. Yeah.
yeah, I like decided that like in January I was like, you know what? It just the timing in my life was right to like let's go full time because I this is the only way that I will get to spend the max amount of time with my child. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I did early on with my schedule. There was a point my son was probably about 1, and I noticed that like on Thursdays we would end up like kind of out and about, like hanging out, doing something. And so then I just put that into my schedule. Every Thursday I'm not working. I am doing an adventure day with my son. So for me, I was taking
Mm.
Thursdays and Sundays off because my husband still he works 6 days a week, so he's working Saturday anyway, and then most of the time it's like I have a wedding or sessions anyway on Saturdays. So it just
Yeah.
fits better for us. But I then have that whole Thursday dedicated to my son. So that's where I get in obviously like the bulk of like my intentional time with him. And I think because we have that, it it kind of like helps me throughout the other days that I have to work to like not feel as guilty because I know, okay, well, tomorrow's
Yeah.
Thursday. Like my big work day is Wednesday, but it's followed by Thursday where we just get to chill and go do something fun, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I would say, like, when I'm looking at like the big picture of the week is definitely be sure to schedule that intentional time with your kids. And maybe you can't do a whole day, but maybe you can like, the other time that I like to connect with my son is like during lunchtime. It's like, okay, well, we have like roughly an hour or so that we're doing lunch, and maybe we go out front and kick the soccer ball back and forth for a little while or go on a walk or ride a scooter, whatever it is. um,
Yeah.
but the other thing that I love doing with my son, and it has kind of shifted a little bit as he's gotten bigger, is I love to bring him into my workspace. Not necessarily here physically, like in my home office, now that he's gotten bigger
Mm-hmm.
because he's just running around crazy and wants to touch everything. But
Right.
I'm like, those are
Yeah.
expensive
What does
cameras.
this cord do? Can I unplug your computer?
But when he was a little guy, every morning after he would wake up, I would have him on my lap. I would get on my Instagram story, be talking to my community, and he would just be there with me. And everybody really loved
Mhm.
seeing him and like simultaneously with hearing me talking, you know? And then, like you said, it's like it brings that like family aspect. Like, yes, I'm a business owner, but I still am raising a child.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I will say, and like shout out to my sharpshooter photography community because they love on my son so much. And I am just so thankful for that because like
Mhm.
many of times, and this was like before my son, had like a consistent babysitter, which we did end up implementing probably when he was about 1.5. Um, we had a babysitter come over for a couple hours twice a week just so I could get more focused work time. But before we did that, like I was taking him with me to family sessions. So again, I'm very fortunate. He's pretty chill. He used to be at least.
Uh-huh.
But he would just chill like in a stroller. He's very observant, so he would just hang out with me. And my community is amazing because I would always ask just to be sure that everyone was okay with that. And everyone was like, "Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, yes, bring him along. We'd love to have him." So I also like have some really sweet pictures of like family sessions with like their kids like playing with my son like between shots and stuff like that. So it's been so special to be able to like raise my son within my business as well.
Yeah. And I love that that's not something that you have to necessarily separate.
Hmm.
Because I think that a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, I can't even ask if I can bring my kid to a photo shoot
Right.
because that's just going to be something extra. And maybe they won't feel like I'm paying enough attention to them and they're paying me for this hour and all of that. But like, you did the hard thing and just
Hmm.
asked, like,
Hmm.
hey, are y'all cool with this? Because if they said no, then it was like, okay, well, I've got to figure out something
Right.
else. But
Right.
it's always going to be no, and if you don't ask.
Hmm.
And there
Absolutely.
have been a couple times where we've had babysitters fall through, or especially during like early, the first year or two of
Hmm.
COVID, where we had family members that were supposed to watch the kids and
Right.
then they got COVID and we are like, all right, well, we definitely can't have them watching the kids.
Right.
And I have an engagement shoot. And there have been
Hmm.
times that, the little baby ergo strapped to my
Yes.
back and, they're just like over my shoulder, just pulling on my ears and stuff. I'm like, that's cool. This is
I
what we're
love
doing.
this.
And it works.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Uh,
The-
yeah. And like, there's something to be said about like,
Mhm.
not being like a hard this is work and this is family,
Right.
but especially as an entrepreneur and someone who focuses on being there and being present with your family, sometimes
Hmm.
those lines blur a little bit,
Absolutely.
and that's cool too for them. Especially like my 8-year old, he probably from the time he was 3 or 4 would come into the office, which at that point my office was a desk in the bedroom, which is funny that I'm back here right
I
now,
was like,
even
isn't
though
that
I
where
have
you
like my
are?
yeah my office right now is full of boxes because we moved
Oh, right, right.
a month or two ago, but yeah, it's he was there with me and like I would edit or I would
Hmm.
be packing up for a wedding and he would be
Hmm.
asking about like what is this thing, and
Yeah.
I'd be, oh, that's a flash, I put it on my camera like this, and he's like, oh, cool. And like I have a bunch of film cameras and I have this little like paper shoot camera that's
Hey, I have the paper
super
shoot
durable
too.
and little small.
Yeah,
Nice. Do you love it?
I do. Well,
It's yeah.
it's so easy. I love to travel, so it's just like easy to like put it in my little fanny pack or my backpack or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was buying
Yeah, it's like
disposable
it's
cameras
smaller than
anyway,
my cell
so
phone.
yeah.
Same. Yeah. I was doing the same thing, and like those disposable cameras, it's the price of the camera and then like another $15 to
To develop.
process the film.
Right.
And yeah, I love the pay per shoot cameras. I'll throw a link in the show notes for anyone who's just like, what are these that y'all are talking
Yeah,
about?
they're so trippy. I
But
feel like
I
I
love
have those
those with the
by.
kids. I know. Oh, I have
I was
one.
gonna say I usually have mine here on my desk. I probably took it somewhere out though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's so
will
cool because it's
here.
like
Let me
so
take a
flat.
picture of us. Yeah, there we go.
I was like, send it to
Bring it
me.
up. Yeah, super flat. Little ad for
Paper shoot.
actually that was not a good one because I couldn't get you in that one. There we go. That's better. Okay. But yeah, like that kind of stuff where he knows that I'm a photographer. He
Mhm,
knows that I take pictures of people, that I go to weddings, and it's not something that is separated away. He knows what my cameras are,
mhm.
now respects them. There have been a couple of times where, especially
Right.
with like our 3-year-old right now, where I have to keep the doors closed if she's going in by herself because she will just pick up any cameras and just walk around with them. I'm like, that
Yeah.
is very expensive.
Yeah.
Please give it to me.
Yes,
uh,
that's like the stage that
but
we're
no,
at.
I love that you. Yeah, yeah. Three was that with all of ours,
Mhm.
where it's just, what is this? I want to pick up that, and just getting that independence of, oh, I can do this on my own. I can pour my own orange juice,
Yes.
and like you can,
It'd be
but
better if I do it.
we've also learned, yeah, we've also learned how to clean up after ourselves that way.
Right.
Uh, but no, I love that that everything doesn't always have to be separated.
Mhm.
But in at the same time, like you were saying, having those days dedicated to work, and then days dedicated, or at least hours dedicated
Mhm.
to work and to uh, strictly family time, where you're not trying to sneak in a couple edits
Right.
while everyone's, it's movie night on Friday and everyone's on
Right.
the couch and you're over there on the chair editing some photos and like, oh yeah, no, that was funny, I missed that part of the movie.
It's
But
funny
like
that you say that.
you can actually be present. Yeah.
As it's funny that you say that because I actually have, like, family movie night scheduled on Fridays.
Nice. Yeah, we try and do that every Friday of just,
Yeah.
this is going to be different. Y'all get to stay up a little bit later.
Yep.
We're going to watch a movie.
Mhm.
We try to get everyone to agree on it. Doesn't always work.
Yeah, you have
Um,
more people in the household over there that you're trying to get to agree on something.
yeah, yeah. And, our son is very into like, the action type
Yep.
stuff, and the
Mhm.
girls are very much into like mermaids and uh, really mostly just mermaids right now for some
You
reason.
should
But
look you
I'm
should
here for it.
watch, maybe this would, like, bring them together, the Pixar movie Luca,
Okay.
if you haven't watched that.
Everyone loves Luca. That
Okay.
is in
I was
our
gonna say that's gotta be a
rotation
good
a
one.
lot. Yeah, it's got the fish people and it's
Mhm.
got some fun bike races
Yeah, yeah, a
uh,
little bit of
and
everything.
yeah, we saw a Vespa on the road the other day and they were like, from Luca, and I was like, yeah, from Luca.
That's
Yeah,
super
they're
cute.
making them out here for us now. But no. Okay. This has really been great, Danica. I've
Mhm.
enjoyed this conversation, and like you've brought a lot of really great insight for, especially for those who are just like overwhelmed with everything, where it's
Yeah.
just like you've got all the curveballs flying at you,
Mhm.
and this is some gloves to be able to catch those, to where it's not as crazy. I mean, life is always crazy. You throw some kids in there, and you don't want to just like sit them in a corner and be like, I have to
Right,
work right now.
right.
But like these tips are really great to be able to kind of manage everything,
Mhm.
and figure it out for what works for you,
Yeah. You kinda just
as
have to,
well.
like, let it flow and figure it out along the way. Nobody has, like, an
Hmm.
actual answer book. I share these tips, like, they're things
Right.
that have worked for me, but obviously, every family has to find what works for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every person is different. Every
Hmm.
family is definitely different because there are multiple people in those families.
Right.
So yeah, find what works for you. Take Danica's tips today, and then be able to implement those how it fits into your family puzzle. Uh, but before we kind of wrap up with where people can find you and listen to your podcast
Mhm.
and all of that, there's part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week, and it can
Okay.
be literally anything from a new TV show, book, movie, whatever to I'm loving Topo Chico, uh, but yeah, what are you loving this week?
What am I loving this week? I actually I am a huge believer in like business education, which is why I'm trying to like build that space.
Mm-hmm.
But I myself am part of a coaching program right now. So that it just started. So that's what I'm loving this week.
Very nice. Okay, cool. I am a huge advocate for continued education. I
Hmm.
I believe that if you once you stop learning and growing, you start dying. Like your
Yes.
business will just plateau and start going down if you don't continue to learn and adapt
Hmm.
and just build relationships and learn more about different things.
Hmm.
So I love that. And those communities are the best because everyone there, at least most everyone there, is there for the same reason,
Right.
and you already have that built-in connection of like you're wanting to see this growth in your life and business. I'm wanting to see this growth in my life and business, and we
Hmm.
can walk together in this.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
it's
Is it
great to
a
like have this.
online type deal?
It is. It's over Zoom. It is the coach. I did meet her actually through social media as well. So again, social media bringing
Nice.
like connections from all over the country, all over the world.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, she's been like a huge source of like inspiration for me, just because like, ironically, actually, she's a boy mom. She has one son, but she just lives like this life that I feel like is like kind of where I would want to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be big and bright and like full of like these flamboyant like riches or anything, but like
Mm-hmm.
just very down to earth. Like if they want to travel and explore, and she homeschools, and it just feels very much so with like I would love to do. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, she's been a huge inspiration. And I also love what you said, because I say this a lot on my podcast. If you're not learning, you're not growing. So
Yes. Yeah.
I say that like
100%.
I like to stay a little bit uncomfortable, because it's actually not as comfortable as we believe it to be inside our comfort zone. I just want to be outside of that a little bit and keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when you get uncomfortable, that's when you start growing.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if you are completely comfortable, you are definitely just like curled up in the corner in a couch and just like you're
And
not
you're
doing
wondering
anything
why
really
nothing's
productive.
changing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's great. I let's see. This week I'm loving. So I'm a big like horror movie like
Hmm.
thriller type fan.
Hmm.
And I went down a rabbit hole of finding these like short horror films just independently produced, just like a lot of time the video quality is not great. It's
Uh-huh.
just people making them and being like, yeah, this is a screenplay that I wrote and just throwing it up on YouTube.
Hmm.
And I found one that was called Larry years ago on YouTube, and it has now been adapted to a full length film called Come Play,
Oh my gosh.
and is really good. I just watched it. It's on, let's see, it's on, I think it's on Freevee,
Okay.
but I watched it through Prime Video because they're like connected now. Um, but
Is
it's really good. It's kind of so the premise is that it follows a kid. He's probably like, I don't know, 10 maybe. I'm really
it?
bad at judging how old children are. He could be 14. I don't know. He could be 7. I'm getting better now that I have
Somewhere between seven
kids
and
that are certain
14.
ages. I'm like, he looks older than my 8-year-old, so he's probably 10.
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, he reads this story in his tablet, like
Hmm.
Kindle type deal,
Hmm.
and the character comes to life and like lives in screens,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's really interesting. It's I didn't realize whenever I started watching it that it was an adaptation of the Larry short film or short
Hmm.
story until a certain scene, and I was like, "This is just like that horror film thing that I saw years ago." And then I
Yeah.
looked it up, and it's the same creator, same director.
Is
But
it
yeah, the
actually
mom is
scary? Is it actually scary, or is it like fake scary?
it's it's kind of I don't know. There's parts that are like, okay, yeah, this is like there's like that eeriness of just like there's
Mm-hmm.
no music, and you
Ooh,
just like
I don't like
hear
that.
floorboards creaking and stuff that are just like, oh yeah, this is a little creepy. But like there's no big jump scares, and it's not like a graphic like
Right.
like the Saw movies or anything like that.
I'm like, I am
But
out
yeah,
on
it's
all of
good.
them.
Yeah,
I'm not.
so is
I'm
my
not a.
wife.
Yeah.
She's like, you give me the like 2 minute synopsis of what
Hmm.
the plot is, and then I'm good.
Oh yeah, for
I don't
sure.
need to
That
see
was
all
totally
of it.
enough.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So if that's something that you're into, check it out. I'll have a link to that as well. Um, but yeah, it's fun because there's also like some the parents were both characters from other shows that I loved.
Hmm.
Um, the mom was Britta from the show Community from years ago,
Okay.
and the dad was Jim from Newsroom, uh, which is a really good.
I am
Uh,
terrible. I don't know these. I'm like,
look
I've
out! Both
never
of those are
been a
great.
huge TV person. So actually, sometimes I
Mm,
occasionally ask some of my friends, like, okay, what show are you watching? What do I need to be watching? So, and my favorite one, this was actually probably like 2 years ago, but one of my friends, she recommended the show Parenthood, which is ironic that we're talking about
oh yeah,
Parenthood.
yeah. It's
Um,
one of my favorite. It's so good.
it's so good.
I loved
It's
Parenthood.
so
Yeah.
good. I was like obsessed. So
Yes.
that's like my
Yeah.
kind of like feel good
I'm
show.
Yeah, I'm a big Dak Shepard fan.
Okay. Yeah.
I've loved him since his Without a Paddle days,
Yeah.
and just kind of like followed him along. And it's funny that like I think he started his podcast about a year before I started mine, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, cool, he's in the podcast realm now too, and now he's got like one of the biggest podcasts.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, I liked that he was in that show, and I was like, this isn't
Hmm.
really like I'm not a big drama type TV person. Like I didn't watch This Is Us, and I knew Parenthood had a
Hmm.
very This Is Us type feel to it. Um, but I loved it. So
Yeah.
Dax brought me in, and then everyone else kept me there. It
Yeah.
was
Definitely a heartfelt
really,
one
really
too.
good. Just like the very heartfelt, yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, oh yeah, and Mae Whitman's in that show too. I might
Yeah.
have to do a rewatch
I know.
of
I've been
Parenthood
thinking about it
because
recently, and I'm like, I don't know. I will get so sucked into that, and then the whole work schedule gets all messed up.
right, yeah, yeah. Then it was like, what are my priorities again?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It's
but
fine.
uh-huh. But okay, well, Danica, where can people find you? Where can they connect? Be friends on social media and all of those things.
Yeah. So my photography Instagram is sharpshooter.photo. And my podcast Instagram, which is the newer one as of this year, is sharpshooter.pod. So photographer. If you want to check out my work, I would love to see you over in that space or both. Come check me out and see what kind of tips that I have to share over on the podcast as well. I'm happy to have you. Feel free to DM me and say hi and let me know you saw me here with John. And yeah, we can chat it up.
Awesome. Well, sweet. Yeah, and I'll have links to all of that in the show notes
Mhm.
as well, so y'all can just scroll on down and click. Super easy. But
Well,
yeah, well, Danica, this has been great. I really enjoyed this. I know that we just hit the hour mark. Like
did we
we were
really?
like we could talk for hours, and we
Yeah.
literally talked for an hour.
Yeah.
But this has been great.
That's how
I
you know it's
really
good.
enjoyed this.
I really appreciate you
Exactly.
having me
Yeah.
here today. It means a lot to me. This is actually the first podcast that I have been on of someone else's. So thank you again. And
Awesome.
I hope everybody just has enjoyed this moment.
Yeah. Well, I know I have. So I'm gonna speak
Likewise.
for everyone and say that they
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah.